走り出せ走り出せ空高く鳩と差し
Hi guys, it's Wasabifold here with another One Piece video for you, and this is going to be the first video in a series of videos that I'm going to make addressing the Straw Hats versus the Blackbeard matchups that I am expecting at the end of this series when the two crews clash for the position of Pirate King. In my opinion, I expect it to be Blackbeard and his 10 Titanic captains versus Luffy and his 10 crew members in a final battle grudge match for the position of Pirate King. So now that that's out of the way, I just want to lay some ground rules for the rest of this series on matchups. First of all, that are very obvious: Luffy versus Blackbeard, Zoro versus Shiulu, Usopp versus Van Augur. These are incredibly obvious. Anyone can pick these, and I might not do a video on these because there isn't much to discuss. There isn't much to argue. You know, I think everyone is on the same page when it comes to those matchups. But other than those matchups, I actually think that there is a lot of theories that can actually be derived going forward, and I'm actually going to start with a matchup that is a little bit more theoretical because it's not based on anything that has currently happened or based on things we know, but it is a matchup that I really fully support because I think it really does fit with Sanji and what skills he has. So the first thing I have is that Sanji versus Jesus Burgess. I believe that this is Sanji's eventual matchup. I discussed extensively in the Sanji plus House Shopping theory how Oda loves to give Sanji defensive-oriented fighters, such as Pearl and Giabura with his Tekka Kenpo, Wanzo with his Ramen Kenpo, Absalom with his Gorilla Body. These four opponents that Sanji has had are all opponents that boasted about the toughness or the awesomeness of their defensive skills, but Sanji was able to break through. And I think Oda definitely wants to have his martial artists in the crew be kind of like this ultimate defensive breaker in the series. So Sanji, in my opinion, is definitely going to continue to get opponents that require him to break through a defense that is very powerful. Now, I think that Jesus Burgess is the perfect candidate for a defense like that inside Blackbeard's crew. He has been given the prominence of the first division commander of Blackbeard's first Grand Fleet. I think that this speaks to a much similar position that, for instance, Marco or Jozo held in Whitebeard's crew, and I believe that Blackbeard is going to be hunting down the Whitebeard pirates for their Devil Fruit abilities, because we know he's on the Devil Fruit hunt, but Marco's fruit is the perfect fruit for giving Blackbeard his perfect trifecta of fruit. You know, there's always the theory that Blackbeard has three, he's going to get three fruits. He has three bodies, or yes, three whatever, because of the recurring theme of three that Oda has. And I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I think a lot of people know about it, and I think Marco's fruit is perfect for him. However, who will he give the diamond fruit to? There's several members of the crew that can get it, but I actually believe Jesus Burgess is going to get it for several reasons. One, I don't think that Shiulu is going to eat a fruit. I know there was the whole foreshadowing of Zoro cutting diamond at some point in the series, and going to say, oh, he's going to fight Shiulu and Shiulu's going to have the diamond fruit and he's going to have to cut through diamond. I think Shiulu as a character, I think he has a lot of respect for the sword and the way of the sword. I actually think that it would be really cool if he's just like Zoro and his view on certain things, and I don't want him to have a devil fruit. I mean, that's the truth. I want him and Zoro to fight, and it to just be Haki versus swordsmanship versus blades. I want them to look like really cool fighters that don't rely on devil fruits to make their way to the top. They're just really strong swordsmen. And I would like a character with that kind of honor, respect for the sword, to be the kind of anti-Zoro in Blackbeard's crew in a similar way. The only difference being that Shiulu would be a little bit more sadistic and a little bit more, kill happy than Zoro. But I would like that. I think that would be a cooler way for Zoro to have his final fight than to have a fighter who basically the only reason the fighter is able to hang with Zoro is because he has a diamond exterior that can't be cut. And a fight like that is going to end the moment that Zoro cuts through that diamond. The fight is going to be over in like a one shot, and I don't think that would be too satisfying. Also, Jesus Burgess, I think, is the perfect candidate for it because he is just like Jozo in physical stature. Jozo and Jesus Burgess are very similar physically, very strong, very upper body centric, power base, very similar designs, and I think it just screams to me that, you know, he'd be perfect for the diamond fruit because he could utilize it in a much similar way to Jozo did because of his physical strength and his physical capabilities, and it would help him out in an area that he's clearly not the strongest in, which is defense. His hockey isn't that great, you know, obviously it can't be because he only learned it over the time skip. It makes sense that his hockey would not be that great. Sabo kind of punked him, but Sabo's clearly a more experienced hockey user. So, you know, I think that would actually make a lot of sense for Jesus Burgess to say, you know what, let me get a diamond fruit or something to augment my defensive capabilities. And he seems like the kind of fighter who would willingly, you know, give up anything to gain more power. So that's my pick, Jesus Burgess versus Sanji. It also actually makes a lot of sense because Diamond is a very good conductor of heat, but it is very also resilient to high heat. Diamond can handle quite a lot of heat, and Sanji we expect to have a really hot Diablo Jumbo by the end of the series, and it would be an interesting fight, especially when you think about, you know, how Jesus Burgess lost to Sabo. He might be pretty miffed about losing to a fire user. He might actually get a fruit that could handle the heat specifically, and only to then lose to Sanji, who has, you know, heat and a lot more skill with it. So I think that would be a cool fight for Sanji, to fight against an opponent where his heat attacks don't seem to do anything, but yet he breaks through in the end because of how skilled he is, or he goes up to another level with it. So that to me is the perfect opponent for Sanji in the end of the series. What do you guys think? I've seen some other matches for Sanji. I've seen Lafita, I've seen Avalo Pizarro, but I believe that because of the prominence in the crew, Jesus Burgess being First Division Commander, you know, that means that he's going to be put in the top 3 strongest fighters in Blackbeard's crew, in my opinion. So you're going to have, you know, Blackbeard, Jesus Burgess, and Shiulu in like their own monster trio of the Blackbeard crew, versus our monster trio, Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy, and that's how the opponents will kind of divide themselves up there. So that's my video. Thank you guys for listening. This is Wasabifold signing out.